Hello everyone, welcome on my channel. Today I have the pleasure to be live with Mr. Dante Frisiello. Hello Dante.
Hey man, you said it right.
Yeah, for once, it's great to have you here on my channel. Thanks a lot for accepting the invitation. We were talking on Instagram a few weeks before now, but you were on tour with Steve Vai. So I will just say how I discovered your work. I saw you in Toulouse in July this year. It's where I lived, and it was absolutely amazing. You were still on tour a few weeks before, I guess. That's it. How was the tour?
Yeah, it was good. We were going around the US and that was I was also working as a guitar tech for that tour as well. And you know, anyone who's ever worked on a road crew could tell you it's a tough job. It's really hard. And we had 10 weeks, so 52 shows, but man, we just had so much fun. It was a blast. It was so much easier than Europe just because you know, logistically, we didn't have nearly the set of challenges that we had over there with buses breaking and having to take trains at 4 in the morning and gear breaking and the trailer breaking and, you know, no air conditioning and all kinds of crazy stuff. You know, so the US thankfully, we did have one bus issue and we missed one show, unfortunately, but otherwise, thankfully, everything was great, smooth as silk, easy. You know, long tour. 10 weeks is a long time. So I'm just at home kind of chilling out a little bit and enjoying the holidays with my family right now, to sort of recoup a little bit. But it was great, man. We had a great time.
I guess it was quite hard because, as I saw, you have some issues with the bus, with the train. We saw on social media that you were between these two kind of transportation, so it was quite tough. So it's a big news now because Dave Viner, the other guitarist of the Steve Vai band, just said that you will be the next guitarist of the Vai tour for next year, 2023. So for this, congratulations. I think it's
Thank you.
wonderful news for you. You were guitar tech, you play on stage. How was it?
Well, you know, I don't totally it's kind of crazy, you know, it feels really surreal to me. I got to know Dave over 5 or 6 years when I lived in DC. Um, and you know, he had a jam club in Philadelphia, and I used to just drive up to it once a month, just to play, just to get exposure, to play, to learn, to grow. He's really the only professional musician I knew at the time, and I knew I wanted to be a musician. I was in my legal career, but I wanted to be a musician, and I was trying to find a way. And you know, that was just an opportunity to get to know a professional musician and jam and play with them. And of course, I knew Dave from touring from his work with Steve, and I had taken a Skype lesson from him when I was in college, a couple Skype lessons. So I sort of knew him a little bit and knew of him and loved his music. And I just thought, man, what a great opportunity. So I went up and I jammed with this jam club with him many times. And just over the years, he started offering me little opportunities like, hey, you want to, you know, be my tech at this thing? Or do you want to open for my band at this local show? And, you know, I just tried to really deliver on those opportunities when they came. And eventually he asked me to be his tech on this tour. And so I quit my job and hopped on the tour bus and went, learned how to be a guitar tech sort of as I went. I've never done it before, but you know, there's a lot of things involved beyond taking care of guitars, which I'm decent at. I'm not the best, but yeah. So, you know, leading up to the tour, he, you know, mentioned to me, not anything concrete, but that, you know, he was kind of thinking about recommending me for his spot in the band, if and when he were to leave, which he was, you know, thinking about, you know, and trying to figure out on his own. And eventually, you know, the time came and he made his decision and he recommended me for the slot, which was kind of crazy. You know, so I was learning last year. I was learning all of his parts and trying to be as prepared as I could. And then when Europe started, you know, Steve wanted to hear me play some stuff and wanted to hear my music. So I sent Steve my music and I sent him some transcriptions I made of his music that I had been making just for fun over the years. And you know, played some parts during the show, played some songs during the shows, and played at sound check, and you know, did well enough, I guess, for him to want me to be in the band. So yeah, so here I am. That's kind of how it happened. Bit of a story to it, but yeah, so I ended up here.
It's a great story, I guess, and I could say it's like a dream come true, because I saw your YouTube channel. We'll talk about your YouTube channel just after that, but I saw that one of your first videos on the channel was a cover of Steve Vai's song. So I
Oh, you
guess,
found that?
yeah, I saw that it was the first of the channel. So I knew you're very young. But
Yeah,
I guess it's a dream come true, because Steve Vai was one of your most of your influence.
yeah, you know, a primary influence. I would say that, you know, my brother was my first guitar hero,
Oh.
and Steve Vai was my second, because my brother picked up my old guitar, which I tried learning guitar once and quit because I hated it. I hated learning how to read sheet music, and I was playing Mary Had a Little Lamb on sheet music, and I hated it. Like, this is not for me, you know. So I got really good at Guitar Hero because I still thought guitar was super cool. And then my brother was visiting one time, and he saw me playing. He's like, "Dude, what are you doing? Like, don't be a loser who plays fake guitar. Like, play the real thing." And he picked up my old acoustic, and he started jamming Stone Temple Pilots on it. And I'll never forget it, because I saw it, and a switch clicked in my life. It was like, you know, up until that point, I sort of knew some things about who I was and what I was, and then a switch flipped, and I was like, no, I'm actually something totally different. Like, I need to do that. I need to play guitar. Yeah. And then a few months later, I discovered Steve Vai on YouTube. I did not know who he was. And I discovered him on YouTube playing with an orchestra. Playing Lotus Feet was the first song, and it just, like, it was another light bulb switch moment. Just 2 months after the last one, when I discovered his music, I just thought, I need to make that sound. Like, I just need to. That's, you know, the guitar that's what really made it sacred to me, was discovering Steve. And then there was the windfall of players I discovered after, you know, Joe Satriani and Eric Johnson and John Petrucci and all that music. And then before all that, the only band that I would say is like the biggest staple in my life of all time is Rush. I've been listening to Rush since I was 5 years old, and I've, you know, religious Rush fan. So Alex Lifeson, up until then, was like, that's what I thought the guitar sounded like. Big, beautiful, clean crystal chords and epic solos and great melodies and, you know, riffs and atmospheres and textures. So I think, you know, really when it comes down to it, those are the three guys, Alex Lifeson, my brother, and Steve, who were the biggest influences on me. And in terms of my sound, you know, it really comes from Alex and Steve, their influences. Okay. So yeah, I mean, to be working with him and playing with him is, it's definitely a dream. There's no other way to put it. So I'm super stoked.
Yeah, you can, and you deserved it, I guess. And I'm sure that when you see your videos and you're playing, it's well deserved. You talked about the first contact with the guitar with your brother. It was during childhood?
Well, I was actually about 12, 13. You know, my brother, I had that experience with him. He didn't live, you know, back with my family when I was 12, 13. He lived in Boston. He still does live in Boston. And you know, he was visiting, and that I was 12, 13. I was just starting high school, and then the Steve Vai discovery happened like 3 months later, my first year of high school. So all those things happened really fast. But I'm not one of those people who picked the guitar up at 4 years old. In fact, I have very, very vivid memories of being scared of music, because I really wanted to play, and I loved music so much, really all because of Rush. Like, that was my favorite band. And I loved music so much, but I was scared of it. And I didn't have any teachers or mentors or people who could show me, like, no, like, this is just, you know, these are just notes. Like, it's not that hard. It's really not. But I was kind of alone in confronting it, and I didn't know what or how to. And, you know, I have memories of myself looking at music and crying because I wanted to understand it, but I didn't. And I didn't really have any help, and like, teachers in school I didn't have any good music teachers in school. So the whole thing just really scared me. but I really loved it. So what happened when I saw my brother playing guitar is that I realized, you know, it doesn't take to be born with a knowledge of music to be able to play. It's just like you just pick the thing up and learn how to play it, just like you learn how to do anything else. And that's what he told me. And that's what changed so much for me, is that I realized I played sports and I thought, oh, I'm an athlete, I can't do music. Those are the music kids. I'm a sport kid. But the funny thing, and because I've been playing sports since I was, 4 or 5 years old, but the funny thing that I realized is that the time you spend is what's going to dictate your outcome. And that's it. There's nothing, sure, some people are born with certain dispositions and things, but I really ultimately believe that if it's what you want and you spend time on it, you'll grow. It's just, you have to. And that was kind of what my brother showed me without saying it, by picking up my old guitar.
Talking about any help, do you took private lessons with a teacher when growing up, or during?
Yeah, so I took a few lessons with my sister's piano teacher. Those were the ones I hated. And then after my brother visited on that trip, I was like, I want to learn, and he suggested going to a guitar store and like finding a teacher at a guitar store. And that, I lived in this tiny little beach town in Florida. My high school was across the street from the beach, and there was a little guitar shop called Guitar Haven. And man, did I get lucky, because in Guitar Haven, there was my first real teacher, whose name was Eric Webb. And Eric Webb can play like a bat out of hell. This dude could play the friggin' guitar like nobody's business. And he played electric, and he played rock and Van Halen, and he played country, and he shredded country licks, and he shredded. I mean, the dude, still to this day, I remember what his fingers looked like playing, because he was a phenomenal guitar player. And so I took lessons with him for a few years. But I think what happened while I was in high school, he taught me tons of songs. He taught me minor pentatonic scale. He taught me all kinds of stuff. And this is when, I say I didn't have any people growing up. Well, this is when that started to change. My brother discovering Steve Vai's music, then Eric in person. That's when it started to change, because I started putting out to the world that it was the right time. It was just the right time. And my neighbor, turns out, my old neighbor, who was a lawyer in town and a family friend of ours, had like 9 guitars, and he had a PRS and old vintage Fenders. And I went over to his house, and he was the first person who ever taught me how to improvise. And, I wasn't particularly naturally gifted, but I was just so excited, and I just wanted to play all the time. And I would wake up on Saturday morning, go work out for 2 hours, and then come home, because I was training for baseball. And then I'd come home and I'd play guitar all friggin' day long, and that was high school for me, was baseball and guitar. And then I had Eric, and he was just an amazing teacher. But I wanted to learn theory, and I wanted to learn how to compose and stuff. And so I stopped taking lessons with Eric when I moved away from high school. And then the next person I really encountered was Dave. And we took a Skype lesson, like 3 or 4 Skype lessons when I was in college. And man, those were next level, because Dave is a really, really good teacher, and he knew how to tell me what I needed to hear about theory, about writing. And I wouldn't have started writing. I did write a little bit at the time, but he really inspired me to write because of what he told me in those lessons. Just like, it was about the attitude. It wasn't about, I thought you needed gear and a studio and money, and I thought you had, again, it was the same thing. I thought you had to be someone special to make music, and that I couldn't be that kind of person. But thankfully, technology has completely changed that. Anyone, anywhere can make any kind of music with computers. And this was kind of around the time when that revolution was really starting to happen. All the big EDM DJs were starting to come out, and like people were starting to realize what you could do with a computer. And so Dave was really encouraging to me to start writing. And that's when I started writing a lot. And then, yeah, those were really my big teachers, I would say. I also took a ton of lessons when I was in law school after college with Jake Lowe from Pliny's band.
Oh, yeah.
And he also, his band is the Helix Nebula. with Steven Taranto, and Jake is just a monster. And I loved my lessons with Jake, man. I took lessons from him for probably 2 years, on and off, once every 2 weeks, once a month, depending on how busy I was. But dude, so many great lessons. And what I learned from Jake was, you know, how to do the modern progressive computer, all that kind of stuff, programming drums, really metal, you know, because he's a real metal guy, and Dave is a blues guy and a rock guy, not really an instrumental shred guy, you know, in his own. I mean, certainly he's made amazing records and had his career with Steve, but you know, if you asked him, I'm sure he would say like he did the instrumental thing, but it's not really something I ever learned from him. What I learned from Dave was attitude. What I learned from Jake was a lot of the details of the process, how to program drums, how to write music, how to use Guitar Pro, how to transcribe. He taught me so much of that stuff. So I really I found all these teachers because I sought them out. You know, I sent Jake a message because I followed him on Instagram, and I'm like, dude, I see you're teaching. Can I have a lesson? And that's how it started. And you know, I've taken Skype lessons from so many players like that 2 or 3 times. Nick Johnston, Rick Graham, Aaron Marshall, and Horace Bray. So many of these guys that are out there doing it. And I would just hit them up and say, yo, can I take a couple lessons from you? Because I want to learn something from you. And I was just hungry to learn. I still am. So yeah, those were my teachers over the years. I had plenty of them, but they started kind of later. I didn't really have anyone teaching me music until I was 12. But then it kind of took off. 13.
And you still take lessons now to refresh your play from other players, or you still want to take lessons to?
Well, I would love to. I mean, I haven't taken a guitar lesson in a while, but I'll tell you what, you sit down in front of Steve Vai sits down in a chair in front of you and says, okay, you want to play the song? Well, I'm going to watch. And then you proceed to play through a song. That's a guitar lesson. Because then, you know, he starts showing me little things and intricacies. So, you know, over the last year, I really learned a lot from him and from Dave and from Philip and Jeremy, and watching those guys play. I learned so much about how to be a professional and how to do it. And man, those times with Steve, watching him play, anytime he starts to explain something, I'm like hyper focused, because there's so much to learn from a player like that. Like, there are great players, and then there are great players that you can learn so much from. Like, not every amazing guitar technician, you can, there's something to learn from everybody. But the thing about Steve is that he's so hyper focused on every detail. Yeah. Right. Like, we had this part in the show where there were three of us techs came out. Myself, Doug, Steve's tech, and Danny G, the monitors tech. And we came out and we did this in the US. We did not do this in Europe, but we play a 5-part harmony over the melody from this song Steve wrote called Incantation. And when he was teaching all 3 of us that at sound checks, it was like, you know, if you just listen to the melody, you just hear boom, dum, dum, ba-dum, dum, bla-da-dum, boom. You know, you just hear that. It's like, okay. But then he starts playing it, and it's like, you know, vroom, you got to do a big slide, and the first note, vroom, dum, second note is short, dun, dum, and dun, dun, you got to slide. Yeah. And then I instantly realized, holy shit, like, I learned the part, and then there was learning the part, and then learning the part Steve's way, which has so many tiny inflections that even if you're really listening, you're never gonna play it like perfectly the first time. He's gonna say, well, there's this tiny little thing, and then and your ears start to open up, and it's so exciting because, you know, I just got to learn so much so fast. Like, oh, he's adding this, and as I was like going to bed in my bunk during the tour, and I would be thinking back on the day about these little things that he showed us, and I just thought, man, I don't think about any of those little phrasing details in my playing. I should. And because Steve's playing is so decorated with so many different little techniques and things, that there's just it's so rich, you know. It's like biting into a cake that has, you know, 20 different flavors in a good way. You know, it's like, oh, well, there's this and there's that, and there's all these little subtle things. And then I started hearing in my own playing, well, what if I use that technique? And what if I use that little slide thing? So the learning never stops. I haven't taken a guitar lesson formally in a few years, but every time Steve plays, you know, I try to listen. And, you know, one of the big things I want to do before we go back on tour is I want to really dive into Guthrie Govan's books. He wrote 2 books that I discovered recently.
Okay.
And yeah, 2 books. And I'm going to really study those seriously because I think he is, you know, a truly the master of all techniques and just, you know, such an unbelievable player. And so I want to learn and steal stuff from him next.
Okay, oh, so much to come. And what I think is very interesting, what you said, because the first time I hear it, and I think it's very interesting on that point, is you think it's perhaps better to take lessons from players directly on Skype, private lessons, instead of going on YouTube and just search for a lot of lessons. You think it's a more interesting approach to do that than using books, paper, YouTube, and so on?
Well, you know, there's no right or wrong way. Everything's valid. But I think the thing that I got out of doing that, there's 2 things. Number one, you can seek out players who do exactly the things you want to be able to do, and you can get to know them. So you can ask them questions and you get to know them, and you build this kind of teacher-student relationship the more lessons you take with them, where it's like, you know, not only can they teach you exactly what they do or what you want to learn from them, but even more importantly, and this is something no one talks about, is you get to know the person, and you'll hear them say little things and do little things on the guitar that are going to expand your mind in the way, no offense, you know, a YouTube video might be able to do. But there's something about the personal one-to-one connection where it's not a performance, it's not being recorded, there's no production, it's just you sit down with the person. And so they're going to spew out whatever comes up. Like the best guitar lesson I ever had in my life, number 1, was from Rick Graham on Skype. And he taught me a technique to improving something in my playing that I use every single time I need to learn something difficult. Every single time I apply Rick Graham's method. And it was an amazing lesson because he spat out like 20 different things. It was like, well, here, you can take this shape and change it these 4 ways, and there you got your major, minor, dominant, and, you know, whatever. He was like spewing out all that stuff. And so I filed that away. And then you know, he doesn't make videos like that, you know, and you could buy his instructional content and you can study it and pull things from it. But to get that unfiltered, you know, stream of consciousness glimpse into the person, the player, the artist that they are, if your EQ is tuned in, you can learn so much more. And like when people talk about, you know, you ask them, well, you know, like stuff from their records or stuff from their videos or whatever, it's not really what they teach you that matters as much as it is what they're saying and how they're saying it, and that you can learn from their mindset. And there just aren't a lot. I don't know if there are any teachers who do that on YouTube. Maybe Tom Quayle, you know, or Cracking the Code. You know, those are great. Those are a couple ones that come to mind that I love to watch on YouTube. It's just that interpersonal relationship that has so many intangible things, and you make memories. Like I have so many memories from these guitar lessons. I have memories from jamming with my neighbor who taught me how to improvise using minor pentatonic. Just things he said, like about jamming and about feeling music, that you're never going to feel that from a YouTube video. There's something organic about sitting down with someone you look up to and hearing them say things naturally to you that is just so different than watching it in a video. You can listen to, I'm telling you, listen to Steve, right? Like listen to him talk on YouTube. You could memorize his YouTube talks, but you go do the Evo experience and you see him talk in person. I know because I did the Evo experience, his VIP package, when I was a fan back in 2016.
Yeah.
It's different. It's different. The way you're impacted from that interaction is, in my opinion, next level. So if you're looking for guitar resources, yeah, it might be more expensive to take an individual lesson from somebody than to buy their book or to buy whatever. But if you can, and there's someone who's playing really inspires you, there's nothing cooler than getting to spend an hour with them or half an hour picking their brain, learning little things. And it's memorable. And skill is dependent upon memory.
Yeah.
Think about that. Your skill is all your skills are is channeling memories of things you learned in the present, right? Like that's the definition to me of a skill. So when you have a really clear memory of a learning experience,
you can
then applying the skill is going to be easier. If you're, if you read a book and you take all this information, well, what does that mean? But when someone when someone tells you something that flips a switch for you, you're going to go, wow, that's something I'll never forget. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. And you know what? You just convinced me to take lessons with you. Because, and to relate the skills with the memory, it's very interesting. It's all linked to memory because you succeed at a certain point and you know how to reproduce it. You feel it. It's a question of feel and I think of attitude. This is what you said, talking about Dave, about attitude. And this is the missing part in the video. So you were talking briefly about your law school. You had a previous job. It was quite short, if I understand well, but it's you were a lawyer just before being guitarist.
Well, it certainly didn't feel short for me. I went to law school for 3 years, and then I practiced law for 3 years. So it was a 6-year career.
Oh, okay.
And I also had to go to college to go to law school. So 4 years of college before that. So lots of school, lots of tuition dollars. And, why I did it is probably the most important thing that I can say to anybody. And how and why I got out is not as important as why I did it. And why I did it was for the wrong reason. And this is a mistake that people make all the time in their lives. I made it. Anyone can make this mistake. I valued the wrong things. I was valuing affirmation from other people. I was valuing money. I was valuing prestige. I was valuing impressing people. I was jazzed up every time I told someone I wanted to go to law school, and I was going to law school, and I was going to Georgetown, and I was going to do this. I was jazzed up by all the affirmation. People would give me, oh, that's so great. You're going to be so successful. You're so smart. You're going to be so successful. You're going to make so much money. You're going to make a difference in the world. You're going to help people, and truth be told, all I really ever cared about was music, friends, family, video games, sports, the gym, And when I think about like what I feel about the gym versus reading articles about Supreme Court cases, it's a joke. Like when I was 22 years old, all I wanted to do was work out and play guitar and play video games. And that's what I did. And I was still a very high achiever in school. So I was able to get through school and do these do these things. But by the way, this is a finger massager. I'm massaging my fingers because they hurt all the time. I just found it on my desk here, and now I'm just playing with it.
I know the head version, the head version.
Yeah.
I didn't know that one.
So I'm distracting myself. I guess I never really cared about it. I never cared about reading the law. I cared about all the things around it, all the illusions around it that I thought being a lawyer would bring into my life. And the funny thing is in life, if you think something is going to give you all this stuff, chances are, whether it gives it to you or not, it's not going to make you happy. It's just not. The only thing that actually makes you happy when it comes to this kinds of stuff, career, jobs, decisions in your life, is things you enjoy. Like actually pursuing your enjoyment, your happiness, doing things that you like, that you care about, investing yourself in them. I interned for a senator, and I was working for this office and doing all these things that I thought were impressive and important, but I didn't care about any of them really. I cared about the job I was doing, and I always gave a ton of effort because that's me. I was, always wanted to be the best person in the office, the hardest worker, the most impactful person, just because that's who I am. I'm a high achiever. I hate the phrase overachiever. I'm a high achiever because I aim high, and that's just me. That's me. I can't change that about me. And I'm a very ambitious person. But, you know, what happened is I got to law school and the illusion crumbled, because the illusion of this life had no true foundation of enjoyment. And that is what was wrong about me going to law. And that's the interesting thing for me that I want to share about the story, because that's what people in the world get wrong all the time. I got it wrong. So many people get it wrong, is that they base their life around building all these things, but they're missing the foundation of actual happiness, thinking doing all these things will make me happy. But if you're not happy from the thing you're doing now, forget the other shit. You'll waste your life chasing the other shit. And then you'll get it and you'll go, oh shit, I got nothing. I'm not actually happy, you know? And this is the midlife crisis phenomenon that happens so often, that people experience and you hear about and you see in movies and in TV shows, and, you know, midlife crisis. Well, you know, that's how it happens. So transitioning out of law was easy because I knew I wanted to get the hell out by week 3 of my first year of law school. What mattered was figuring out a path there. And I just applied the same skills that I've applied to getting into law school, all those high achiever skills. I practiced a lot. I made 4 records in 4 or 5 years. I wrote a ton of music. I practiced all the time. Getting to know Dave, that was from the same thing of I need people to learn from who are professionals so that I can get better. So I'm going to get in a car and drive 3 hours each way once a month to go jam with him, because I want to learn. He's a pro. How do I become a pro? You know? And I just applied that fucking go get it mentality, you know, and I joined bands. I was in 3 or 4 bands. I started my own band. You know, I just didn't stop. And there were down periods. Don't get me wrong. Like, there were times where I was really depressed as a lawyer, really depressed. I went weeks without playing the guitar. There were times in my legal career, my first year of law school, forget it. I played the guitar maybe a dozen times in a year. I was not playing. And then when I was a lawyer, a lot of times I was barely playing, man. I was barely playing. I did write. A lot of times I wrote without the guitar. I would just write on the computer, strings and pianos and synths and some guitar. But, you know, it ebbed and flowed. It ebbed and flowed. And, you know, people have an illusion that if you want to be successful, then, you know, you have to work extremely hard. You do, but it ebbs and flows. And that was kind of my experience with it all. And then, you know, as the opportunity came from Dave and he asked me to be his tech on the tour, you know, people say, well, was it a crossroads? Was it a hard decision? Are you kidding me? I didn't have to think about it for 30 seconds. It was, you know, really, that's happening and you want me to be a part of it? Okay, let's do it. Like, I'm as soon as it's all confirmed, I'm quitting my job. I'm getting out. I quit my job. I moved home to my parents' house and I'm out, and I'll figure it out, you know, and, you know, you can catch so much flack. Oh, you know, you're 28 years old and you're going to live at home with your parents, you know, like, but that's just that conditioned thinking voice of society, the same voice that steers you wrong in the first place. So screw that, you know?
Yeah, I think it's a hard decision to make, but I guess you're pretty happy now. It's a wonderful dream, as we said. So I guess you made the right choice.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm happy things worked out great, you know, and they don't always work out great, but regardless, quitting the job was so important for me. You know, I would do it again. I would do it again. And even if this opportunity never came around, I would have done it again. It was just a matter of time. But you know, the opportunity came around and, you know, I worked really hard and there you go.
That's the key, I guess. Yeah. Let's talk about now the touring with Steve and the Vai band. Quick question about your best memory on stage from this month. If you have one, I guess there is a lot of one, but if you have to pick one specifically.
There haven't been a ton because, you know, being a tech, a lot of times I would punch in on one song here, punch in on one song there. And those were, of course, amazing. But my best memory on stage, so in Europe, we were we started doing an arrangement of For the Love of God that involved Danny G, to sing opera on the first verse. And you saw that.
Yeah.
And when he did that, Dave went to play the keys and I went to play the sitar. That was kind of how we set it up. And, you know, the first time I did that, played that sitar part, I was so unspeakably nervous. I don't even know how to put it in words. And it's not a hard part. It's really easy. There's a couple stretchy chords and little tricky things, but I had practiced it so many times I could do it with my eyes closed. And I was so indescribably nervous. And there's really two moments. One was the first time I ever played it, looking over the headstock and seeing Steve with the spotlight on him playing, and just like, oh my God, like I'm in this with him. Like I'm playing, this is happening. I mean, that has to be the best, because the first time I played on stage with him, you know, it was just this one short part, but you know, I'm getting emotional thinking about it, because it was such a triumphant, exciting, surreal moment, and a memory that's just, you know, it's blazed into my mind. A short number 2 was doing For the Love of God at Hellfest.
Oh,
where when I looked up over the guitar, there were 40,000 people.
yeah.
That was absurd. That was absurd. That was one of the coolest things ever, was seeing that many people and being on the stage. I thought, holy shit, it was hard to take in. And, you know, at that point we had done it maybe half a dozen times. So I was really comfortable performing the part. So I wasn't even looking at the guitar much. I was just looking out at the crowd like, oh my God, there's so many people out there. Like, this is crazy. I can't believe. So those would be my best.
Okay, well, it's
But hopefully there are plenty more good ones to come next year. I'm hoping for that.
Yeah, I hope so. There is another question I want to ask you. You didn't play, and Steve didn't play Hydra in France and in Europe too, I guess, only
Correct.
during the US tour. I wanted to know if you have some memories with the Hydra, just to put it, to restring it, or to plays on it. I don't know if you plays on it or not, but
yeah, well, so we didn't bring it to Europe. Steve was still recovering from his shoulder surgery, so he wasn't ready. And also traveling with that thing is a logistical maze that we have not gotten through yet. And that'll be a fun thing for Doug to tell you about probably next year. So the Hydra, I have played it plenty, you know. I've played it and I've tried to move around and hit all the strings and stuff, and it's surprisingly natural, actually, how the flow happens between those necks. It's actually an incredibly well designed instrument, because it's just very logical and it flows really nicely. And so, you know, you can hit the top chord, you hit the top chord, and then you slide down, and then you slide down on the bass, and it's like this really kind of, it's really fun to just, and Doug and I would mess around on it sometimes, because he can play it and he can play some parts from the song, and we would just mess around with like doing one little part, and it feels really good. It feels really good to move around on. You know, you flick the harp, and it's obviously I can't play the thing, but to just do like one little hit a chord, slide harp, right? Like that was all I ever tried to do. Which is the opening section of the verse. It's this big C major 7. I never got that far, but just the first 3 hits, like, oh, it's so cool. But the Hydra almost fell over once, because a stagehand pushed this huge case up a ramp and sprints pushing this big case up, which you have to do because the cases are really heavy. You got to get them moving. And the Hydra was sitting back there, and it bumped it on the side. And Doug was like, "Oh my God!" No! He like dives over to grab it and keep it from falling. And it was fine. Like you couldn't even tell anything happened to it. But that's a funny Hydra moment, just because like we almost saw it go down. Yeah, that would be it. And then also, I saw Steve try to play it standing up a couple times, which was super cool. And I hope he does that more. It's really hard, and it's like you got to be able to balance and stuff, and a lot of people like seeing it on the stand because it's kind of unobstructed. So that's kind of, you know, those are fun Hydra stories.
Yeah, it's incredible, and it's an unbelievable instrument. I don't know what is the number of hours Steve plays on this instrument to have a good play. I know he's a genius on that, but it seems
A
very
lot.
hard to play. So
A lot.
yeah,
I mean, between Europe and between the Vi Academy and the US tour,
yeah,
he had a few weeks and he, I mean, hours and hours each day.
ah,
Hours and hours each day. That's just the only way, because it's it's so unbelievably difficult to do that song the way he does it.
yeah,
It's unbelievable. No individual movement is that hard, but to make it flow and to do the pick switching that he does to hit the bass with his thumb, and to get all these little subtle intricacies while your other arm is doing it. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
yeah.
It's mind-boggling. So many hours.
And this leads to my next question, would be
Yeah,
about how to prepare before a concert from your point of view, the rehearsal, everything, or at home before the tour. How many hours you plays the songs? What is the process behind that?
sure. Well, the process I went through learning this set is I transcribed everything, all the rhythm parts to the best of my ear's ability. And then I learned them. And the process of transcribing and learning them and learning how to play them, just learning how to play them, it took a month. It took a month of, working on it every day, to really get it. And then once you can kind of play it took multiple months in total. But once you can play every song, once you can play the song at like a decent tempo, maybe at the tempo of the song even, but with some mistakes, then there's two things that you have to do. Thing number one is you have to make a list of each song and be like, okay, there's this part in this song. I got to practice that picking pattern for like 15 minutes a day. I got to practice that chord section for like 15 minutes a day. And then your practice starts to shift. And instead of practicing sort of the whole song and everything, you're picking parts that need to get perfected. And you sort of grind them each day so that you're getting, you can play them perfectly. And then that progress starts to stack. And over about a week of doing that, you start to notice those little parts are all getting easier. And then you make a new list for yourself and the list starts getting smaller. Once the list is diminished and you feel like, okay, I can play everything really well, then you do the final step, which is like not maybe necessary for everyone, but I love it. And that, especially for music this intense and, a gig of this significance, playing the entire set sped up. If you can play some of these songs at like 3 or 4% faster, which doesn't sound like much, but holy shit, it is a lot. It is a lot. That is the final step of my process, to play things sped up, and not a lot. You don't do it for a lot of days. You don't do it very often. You do it for like a few days. And then when you go back down to the tempo, it feels like you have all day to put your fingers where they need to go. And it's the same thing as like running with ankle weights. It's like if you make it harder than it needs to be, then what it actually is becomes easier. And I've heard a lot of drummers talk about playing things sped up. And that's kind of where I got that idea from. You don't want to live there because you don't want your internal clock for the song to go too fast. So before the very last thing you should do before you go to, to go be in a rehearsal or an audition or a professional situation, a gig, the very last thing you should do is like really play the whole set once at normal tempo. But if you're working that tempo up, man, because if you can do it at 5% sped up, you're going to be so confident doing it normal speed. You're going to be able to relax and sit back and really feel it. And that's been my experience so far.
Yeah, it's a very good advice on it. It's the first time I hear that, and I think, yeah, of course, it's quite logical, by the way. So, okay, Dante. So now I will talk about your albums, because you have also a solo career. Besides, you talked about some albums. You've released 3 EPs. I count them 3 since 2017. All of them are great. As I told you, just preparing the interview, I listened to them, and it's gorgeous. On the last album, which is called Kindred Spirits, you have acoustic and percussive songs, and it's very relaxing. I wanted to know if that's a will of your side to make a relaxing album. I saw on your YouTube channel you were talking about meditation and calm application, by the way. So I just related these two things, and it was a will on your side to make a relaxing album.
Well, you know, it's funny because there's nothing about those songs that is relaxing to me.
To play.
To play them is extraordinarily difficult. I mean, so hard because it's finger style.
Yeah.
And all acoustic. So every tiny little mistake or thing is amplified. I honestly made Kindred Spirits as a challenge to myself. There is really no other way to put it. Like my first two solo records were just songs I was writing that were fun and they felt good. And I never once in that process said, oh, I'm going to challenge myself with this guitar solo. I was like, no, I'm just going to play a nice guitar solo or whatever. Man, I wrote Kindred Spirits to break myself down. Like it was intentionally made to be something totally different, acoustic only, finger style only, no pick, 6 songs, no pick. Because okay, so I'm glad you asked about this. I was in a band with a guy named Eli Lev in DC, and he was a folk singer-songwriter. And we had a band playing his music. And one time I was at his house at a rehearsal, and it was just him and me. The other band members hadn't gotten there yet. And we were jamming. And he goes, hey, man, can you just throw down like a thumb slappy, simple groove, like a John Mayer kind of, you know, thumb slap, like some rhythmic playing? And I couldn't. I physically couldn't do it. And I was ashamed. I hated myself for it because I'm like, man, how can you call yourself a guitar player if you can't go boom, like if you can't do that, how are you a musician? So I took it kind of as an offense to myself, and I bought an acoustic guitar and I started practicing fingerstyle, just really simple. And eventually I started experimenting with open tunings, and I wrote the first song called When We Met, which is in Dadgad, D-A-D-G-A-D. And I wrote it very quickly when I was in the open tuning. And I kind of filed away in my brain. That was a few years ago. I thought, man, I tuned this guitar to this tuning, and the song just kind of materialized in like 10 minutes. Seriously. And I thought, even with all that, there's all this weird like two-handed Andy McKee stuff in this one passage. It's not Andy McKee level, it's Andy McKee inspired. There's a difference. But he's one of my favorite musicians, you know, and I love his music, and I wanted to do something similar just to see what would happen. And a couple years after that, I was getting really inspired, and I thought I should make an acoustic record. And then it all came out. I bought a new acoustic guitar, and everything came out in a week and a half. I'm serious. 5 out of the 6 songs came out, boom, 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 boom. And the whole idea materialized. So that album, there are 6 tunings. Each song has its own tuning, but the songs are in pairs, okay? So it's his waves and her waves. They're in pairs. The waves tuning is an open tuning I invented, or came up with, whatever, you know. I tuned the guitar to a chord, and then I wrote the song in like 5 minutes because I found the tuning, and the tuning just told me what the song was instantly. And then I discovered the spider capo, which is something Dave uses a lot on his acoustic records. And what I did is I started experimenting with using the spider capo on the same tuning to change the key of the tuning. So now it's like, okay, well, this is, you know, it's got this major feel, but if you throw the spider capo on these 3 notes on the 3rd fret and you play that same riff, now it's minor. Now it sounds totally different. And that's when the whole idea materialized. Like, oh my God, I should write songs in pairs. I should put these songs in pairs. And I basically had the whole record together in a week and a half, except for the final song, Kindred Spirits, which took me a year to finish because I needed an epic ballad to finish. And writing those is hard. And also writing them, it's sacred. You have to get a really good idea. And one day it just clicked. I said, wait a minute. I have 2 songs in this tuning, I have 2 songs in this tuning, and I have that first song in Dadgad that I wrote 2 years ago. So I need to go back to Dadgad and put the spider capo on Dadgad, because that's the missing piece. And once I realized that, same thing. I wrote Kindred Spirits in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I wrote it in 5 minutes because I put the spider capo on, I played 2 notes, and I said, holy shit, the song is right here. And then I just boom, scribble it together. And I like to do these acoustic on piece of paper because I don't record them into the computer. It becomes a visual disaster, you know, because it's just a long strip of audio. So I like to put it on paper and say, okay, there's this idea, that, and then boom, then it's all there. And that was it. So that's Kindred Spirits. And I appreciate your kind words, because that was a really hard album for you to make. It took about a month to record, and then I mixed it and mastered it myself as well.
Okay.
So acoustically, it's not the best sounding record, but performance wise and writing wise, I'm extremely proud of it, because it was really hard to put together. And you know, it sounds okay, but I'm just so proud that I did it, you know, and that was such a fun writing process. And you know, I want to get back into the acoustic stuff now that I've stepped away from it for a while. So I don't know, we'll see where that goes, but it's on my to-do list for next year.
Yeah, talking about that, do you schedule some new plans for your solo career, or after the
Well, for
perhaps?
solo albums, I don't have anything formally scheduled as a release. I'm working on an orchestral electric guitar record.
Okay.
That's going to be my next big solo record. I have probably 4 or 5 pieces of music with full orchestral arrangements written. And I'm going to spend basically all of January on my own music. And that album is going to be the sort of big focus for me. I have no idea when it will come out. I have no idea when it will be finished. Couldn't tell you. And honestly, it's probably going to take a while because of all the touring we have. It's probably not going to come out until 24. Depending on how it goes, because I really want to do, my approach there is I want to do the craziest, most unbelievable, difficult electric guitar parts with an orchestra doing the most wild things imaginable, but all like really beautiful music. But I want this music to be crazy. Like it's gotta be like, whoa, but it also has to be beautiful, you know? So it's a really hard writing project, but it's fun. And I don't have any intentions of like performing it or anything like that. So the goal is to kind of make it as crazy as possible to become a better guitar player and a better writer. And there's going to be all kinds of stuff, a lot of synths in the songs I've put together so far, synths with orchestra, you know? So almost like a hybrid thing. It's very influenced by video game music. I'm a huge video game nerd. It's very influenced. Okay, yeah. So if you've ever heard Phantasy Star Online, have you ever heard of that game with a PH?
It's possible. It reminds me something.
It's an MMO. It's like World of Warcraft, you know, same kind of game, except for it's futuristic and it's got this crazy vibe of like nature and sci-fi blended together. And it's one of my favorite games of all time. All of them. There's multiple games. I used to play them as a kid. There's one I played as an adult a lot last year, the new one. And I just love them. I want to live in that world. So I'm trying to build that world musically. And then acoustic, I do have a single that I wrote last year after I finished Kindred Spirits that's really hard and sort of next level acoustic for me that I would like to record as well. And probably put that out next year just as a single for fun. But the stuff I'm most excited about next year is my band.
Yeah, because I will talk about that now. You have another project which is called Fly Information, which is your band. Just a quick question about that. Why this name? If you can explain the Fly Information, why? It's interesting.
Great question. When I was in high school, I won a poetry contest for a poem I wrote. And I went to go read it at this little poetry convention where I got the award from this contest. And it was totally different for me. It was something, you know, I never had any plans or intentions of doing it. Just materialized. I was in a creative writing class. I wrote the poem, I turned it in, and my teacher was like, this is amazing. I'm putting in for this contest. And I was like, okay. You know, I don't know. I was just writing something for fun. And I went to go read it, and it was, you know, this little thing, and there were maybe 50 people there, and it was just parents and, you know, kids and stuff. And I don't know why I was really nervous, and it was weird for me because I'm very comfortable public speaking. And at that age, I had already done a ton of public speaking. I started public speaking when I was 12 years old. I'm extremely comfortable with it. I love doing it. It's one of my favorite things to do actually in the world is public speak. And I was so nervous. And I thought, why am I nervous? And I was in the car with my dad on the way home. And I told him, I said, man, I'm so nervous for reading this. I don't know why. And he said, well, listen, you're always going to get the butterflies. The secret is to learn how to make them fly in formation.
Okay. Oh, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful explanation. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that stuck with me. And when the four of us guys in the band were talking about the band, I had told that story on a podcast that I used to do with one of my friends, and one of the guys in the band had listened, and he said, dude, the butterfly story, fly in formation, that's what we should call the band. And I'm like, dude, that's it. Like, that's because we were playing around with all these different names, and then it just hit.
Yeah. So. It's a very good story, by the way, and related to your dad. So no, it's
thanks.
Yeah. Talking about this band, you have released Physical Architecture, which is the first album from what I saw. I was mind blown by the rhythmic signatures, who changes a lot. I think it's a common thing in instrumental metal, but for me, I'm more blues player, so I just aware of all style, but especially on my favorite one, which is called What Lives On, which is my favorite part. And
thank you. Not all the way to the end.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I love that one specifically. And I wanted to say that I think this is the melody is the center of your songs. It's not necessarily the case for other metal players, I would say. So can you talk about that a bit?
Thank you. Well, it is the most important thing, because if you don't have that, you just have a clinic. You just have a backing track. You just have a whatever. The melody is front and center. It is the main character of the story, and it's what people walk away with in their hearts more than anything else. And the problem with so many progressive metal bands that I hear is that I can't walk away singing anything. And I think people are afraid to repeat themselves. You know, What Lives On, the last minute of the song is the same melody over and over. You get hit over the head with it's so simple, but by the end of it, you want to start singing it. You want to start screaming it, because it just, I hope, as the listener, I certainly do, and I hope the listener does, because it's uplifting and it just resonates, and it just melody is everything. But the rhythm is the heart. The rhythm is the beat. You know, literally, the rhythm is the blood pumping through the veins. You know, and the movement. And I don't just mean the beat like boom, ta. No, I mean the literal heartbeat, the movement of the song. The energy that you feel is dictated by the drums. The story that you hear is dictated by the melody. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for me, when it comes to Odd Time, when it comes to, and first of all, the drummer, Nathan Sletner, okay? This guy is a god. He is a god. And I'm telling you, this guy is not really discovered yet. And watch out, because he can play like no drummer I have ever seen. I'm serious. He plays as if Dave Grohl and Marco Miniman had a baby. Honestly, it's like he hits the drums like it's like he's in Kiss, or you know, he hits with power and alpha energy, which I love. But he'll start doing fills and, you know, start doing this crazy fast shit, you know, and you get glimpses of it on Physical Architecture. We just recorded a second album that's going to come out next year.
Okay.
And
perfect.
Yeah, and we have 6 new songs. They're in production right now. But all the guitars, bass, drums are all tracked. And we're working on the synths, because the synths are a huge part of our sound, and we want to make them a bigger part of our sound. So we're working on the synths and the keyboards a lot with Brendan Hassan, who's our keyboard player and sound designer. And I'm telling you, some of the fills and some of the riffs and grooves he does on this album are going to freak people out, because it's like 4-limb polyrhythms. It's multiple polyrhythm fills. It's ridiculous. And all at the same time, he's hitting the drums hard as shit. He's not like a jazz drummer, you know, which is great, because those guys have all the chops, you know, but he's like, this is a rock show. This is a rock. This is bah, bah, you know, but he's shredding just so, he's amazing. He is amazing. And he's the perfect drummer. As soon as I met him, he was Virgil Donati's drum tech. My local band, I was opening for Virgil as a local opener one time, and I met him at the merch booth, and he was running their merch, you know, and he had a practice pad and he was practicing. And I just looked at his hands, and I talked to him, and I could tell instantly, this is a serious badass son of a bitch. And then Virgil has him go up and play a groove while Virgil listens to the sound from the audience. And it wasn't a hard groove. But if Virgil Donati tells you to go take over his drum kit, and you go take it over and you play a beautiful, you know, groove perfectly, holy shit. I mean, that is serious business. And he did it with such confidence and attitude. And I on the spot, I said, that's my drummer. That is the guy. And I didn't even need to hear him play a lot. It was the whole scenario. It was the whole thing that happened. So in that music, you're hearing really Nathan explode, and you're hearing the rest of us melodically explode. That's really what we're going for. And on the second album is meant to be the first steps of an entirely new direction. So I'll just say that most progressive metal bands aren't actually progressive, because they all just sound the same. They all just sound like Dream Theater. They all just sound like, we are trying to do something entirely different from the last record. And we're going to keep going in a wacky direction, because we don't really want to sound like everyone else. We want to sound like Physical Architecture was like, okay, we're going to do this sound and we're going to do it better than anybody. That's our goal. And now it's like, okay, we don't want to do that sound at all. We're going to take what we do, guitar, drums, and bass wise, and we're gonna dress it up entirely differently, with an entirely different goal musically, you know. So that's kind of where we're at, and I'm so excited about this band, and I just can't wait to get this new music out there. And you know, it's exciting. It's really exciting.
When it will be released? So in 2023, you know the month or not?
I wish I knew. You know, it's gonna take some time, because it's probably going to take a few months before we have the mastered music, but hopefully the first single is out by summer. That's my goal.
Okay.
There's probably going to be a few singles and an album, and hopefully everyone has all the music by like the fall. That's kind of realistically my goal. I wish I could give it to you now. I wish it was done today and it was coming out tomorrow. You have no idea.
Yeah.
But we got a long way to go still with the production. You know, making a record there's a lot of things that you have to do that don't involve making the music, unfortunately, in order to make a record. And so that's all the stuff we're doing now.
Okay, so just to follow the next news for this Bandfly information, we can follow you on, I guess you have a Facebook, Instagram, and the website perhaps
the band has all the socials, and I have all my own socials as well. And it's, you know, my socials are just my name, The
Okay.
band is just the band name, so it should
Okay.
be easy to find.
So I will put all the links in the description and in the video.
Yeah,
To
thanks, man.
follow
Yeah,
that.
our website is flyinformationmusic.com.
Okay.
And that's a good conduit to find, all the music and videos and
Yeah,
stuff.
that's perfect. Fine. Let's talk now about composition process if you want.
Sure.
So I saw on your YouTube channel, as I told you in off, you have started on your YouTube channel Dante's Way, which is a series of video. You explain how to produce and to compose music, especially on computer. You said you were a lot writing on Guitar Pro, on Logic. You show us how to compose, how to produce music. It's very interesting, and it's about attitude again. To follow what you said with Dave, I want to know a general question about what is the way you compose music. Does it started with a common riff? You put the synth first, the drums first. How does it work for you?
There's no rule. And the way it works for me now, as I would say I started seriously writing music in 2017 with that first EP I made. And in those 5 years, what I've learned is that at this point, I used to have all these rules, and I used to think like that. I used to say, okay, well, guitar first, then drums, or what if I wrote this way, or I'll do it this way. The way it works now is stream of consciousness, flow of ideas. All I need to write a song is I need a seed. I need a little riff on the guitar. I need a chord, one chord.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 3 chords. Sometimes it's 1 chord. Sometimes it's a little melody. Sometimes I sit down at the piano and I play. Sometimes I wrote pieces of music on our European tour on my laptop, piano sketches using the phone keyboard. The laptop piano to get the first couple chords. And then I just drew the MIDI because I allowed myself to get into a state of flow. And that's where I work now. The way I work now is idea generation, and then sit down with the idea. And when I wherever the idea starts, I kind of like to let it follow. If it starts on guitar, a lot of times it makes sense to go. But I just iPhone videos, man. I sit down, I turn my iPhone on, I go, here's a lick. And then I'll just look at the phone and be like, that's it, dude. Turn it off, add it to my favorites. And then I'll bring that and sit down at the computer. And, for something like that, like let's just say the idea was an arpeggio like that. My mind instantly goes, put that on a synth, So I would sit down at MIDI and I would write out the notes, whatever I just sang, And then I would just sit there, and then it's playtime. Then it's, okay, well, what if the drums, and then I program that. And then, well, what if the bass is, And so then I'll grab a bass or program it and just start scratching shit together. And every time it goes differently. There's no set of rules. It has to be this way. It's a playground in here. And I just let it go. I just let my inner child go and make all the decisions. And I don't overthink. Because I spent plenty of time thinking and analyzing, well, what if I use this scale and this chord? And fuck that, dude. I don't think, sorry, pardon my French, or not French, but I don't think about any of that stuff. And I encourage people not to, because analysis paralysis is a very real thing. You don't need to know what scale you're playing to write a great melody. Just ask Steve Vai. He knows a lot of times, but when he talks about melody writing, he talks so much about just following your inner ear. And a lot of times that might say, okay, we're starting in Lydian. Now I want to go to Mixo because I want to go to the flat 7. But you don't really think that way. You can analyze it that way, but all that theory words, it just doesn't mean anything really to your inner ear. It can, and it's like the words of theory are us trying to put barriers around this scale and this sound and this scale and that sound. But man, I don't think about that stuff when I'm writing. And the less I think about it, the better my music is. What I think about, like, there's an orchestral piece that I wrote recently. And when I wrote the first chord on piano, I thought, I need to write the saddest, most intense, brutal end of the world harmony. Like for some reason today, I play this this rainy day thing, and I thought, lean into that and write the most brutal chords you can imagine. Why? Because that's what my gut told me that idea could do. And I sat on my computer for 3 days, and by the end of the 3 days, I had this whole orchestrated song with strings and stuff. And I just, every time I came to the next chord, I just went, what's a weird note? Oh, give me another weird note. Give me another. Oh, that chord hurts. And then I would go to the next chord and I say, okay, well, now I'm going to go down in pitch, and I'm going to keep going down and down and down and down and down and down and down until you're down in a pit of despair, because that's what I wanted to say artistically. And I couldn't tell you what any of those chords are. I couldn't tell you any of them off the top of my head. I could look at them and say, oh, well, I guess this is a minor 7, and this is a minor 7 flat 5, and this is a whatever. I could tell you that, but who cares? It doesn't matter for a composer, really. What matters is that I wanted to bring you down into this hole and then bring you slowly up, 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 up until you're out higher than you've ever been.
Yeah.
And I knew that's what I wanted the song to do, and I just let myself do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I know it's not a good answer, because everyone wants a formula. Everyone wants a secret. Everyone wants to know, well, how do I write a song like that? Well, listen, here's how you write. You have to learn how to use every instrument. And sometimes that means sitting down and writing a song with the guitar, writing a song with the piano, writing a song with a drum, start with a drum groove. So just think of yourself as a kid on the playground, and these are all your toys, your drum samples, your bass samples, whatever, and just experiment with them. And then once you get started, just don't question anything you do. Like, vomit out a draft. That is such a good thing you can do as a writer, is just vomit out a draft and then go back and then really expand and say, okay, well, the idea here is this, but like, what if this note, and what if that note, and what if this rhythm, and what if this note, and boom, okay. And then you just keep doing that until it's really good. And in that process, you don't really think about theory. What I do is I sing. I sit there and I sing. Like, my favorite guitar melodies I've written were ones where I didn't even have the guitar in my hand. I heard the song and I started singing, and then I just wrote the thing out in MIDI and learned it on the guitar later.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll sit here with a track, and if I know I want to do a melody over something, I'll just start singing, and and writing the notes in MIDI as I sing. And then I'm clicking, and okay, that's not it. And then I'll click and just click around, and then 30 minutes later, there's 16 measures of a great melody, and now it's singable. If you can sing it, it's going to be melody. If you can't sing it, then why you bother? So yeah, hope that helps somebody.
Yeah, a lot. And what I think interesting too is that you talked about a poetry previously. So I think you love writing music or words. It's interesting because it's a common thing in the interview. You love writing things. This is very interesting. So,
well, my mom is an author.
Okay.
And my sister is an author.
Okay.
So it runs in the family, I guess.
Yeah. You have a lot of musicians too. You talked about your brother too. So yeah. The creative family, I can say, I guess. Okay,
yeah.
It helps a lot, I guess. Last part of the interview, Dante, if you want, is to talk about guitar technique for young guitar players or amateur guitarists like me, for example. It's a common question I ask to everyone is, what is your daily practice routine if you have one? Do you have something to warm up before a show, before a practice session at home or something like that?
Yeah. Well, warm up, it doesn't really matter what I play. What matters is the length of time. I don't feel comfortable to play 100% until I've had the guitar in my hand for 45 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it takes 45 minutes of playing for me to feel like, okay, if I play right now, I'll be able to execute all the ideas I want to, as close to perfect as I can. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, but my muscles need 45 minutes, and that involves stretching. But I have no set warm-up routine. I stretch, I'll do the chromatic scale, I'll do the chromatic scale, keeping my pinky held down to keep my pinky close. And then I'll just hammer on and pull off, you know, and then I'll stop for a second and stretch, relax. I have to stretch my right shoulder a lot. It gets tight when I play standing up sometimes. And just warm up, just play anything. And it's actually a fun thing for me to, you know, like be creative and just play whatever comes out and just kind of vomit out some things and try new things. You know, I can always go and grab the things that I know I have to do, or grab the things. There have been so many times before shows where, you know, it's really nice to play certain parts of a show that are really difficult. Like I was in this funk band and we had this, there was this one diminished lick in this song that was like, it was like this really hard thing. And I used to just play that for like 20 minutes before the show because I would just want to nail it, you know? So it all depends. Like, you know, before I haven't played a full Steve Vai show yet. And I think my warm-up routine for that before that is going to consist of sort of just mentally going through each song for like no more than 10 minutes and just picking out one hard part. Like Avalancha has this really hard 16th note picking part, and you have to slide. So I'd play that a few times. You know, I'll play a couple of weird chords from like Little Pretty. You know, I'll probably play like, you know, a couple things from whatever my solo ends up being. I'll probably play a couple licks from Taurus Bulba that are really hard and fast. And, you know, just to sort of keep my mind acquainted with, okay, this is how I play that lick. This is how I play that lick. But really all that matters is 45 minutes of playing.
Okay.
That's really my only rule about warming up, is that it's got to be 45 minutes. And then in terms of technique, advice, record yourself. Record yourself, listen back, and work on your vibrato and intonation. Because the difference between a professional and a not professional, to me, is not if you can play jazz. It's not if you can play fusion. It's not if you can play prog. It's not if you can play an 8-string. None of that shit matters. What makes you professional is if you have good vibrato and good intonation. Because if you can do those things, any other song, any other piece of music, whatever, can be learned, can be practiced, can be rehearsed and learned. You don't have to be the best improviser. You don't have to be the best anything. But you have to have good vibrato, and you have to be in tune, and you have to have great intonation, and you have to be able to bend properly, vibrato properly. All the other stuff is extra, but those are the core things. If you can't do that, you don't have it. But if you can do that, you can do anything. You can do any gig, you know, really, just with the amount of rehearsing, you know. There are some gigs I would be way more confident in with way less rehearsal time because I'm more of a rock player. If I was going to go to a rock cover gig, yeah, easy. I could learn the whole set in a night. If I had to play a jazz gig, if someone was like, hey, why don't you come play with my jazz band for a night? I'd be like, I don't really play jazz, but what are the songs? Let me listen to them. Let me study the charts. Let me practice improvising over them. That I would have to rehearse a lot for because it's not in my wheelhouse. But I would love the challenge, so I would do it. But, you know, technique-wise, if you got vibrato and intonation, everything else can be prepared and learned and done correctly. But if you can't be in tune and you can't vibrato a note smoothly and elegantly and pleasantly, I don't care. You don't have it. But if you got that shit, everything else is up to you. Everything else is totally up to you. But you have to have that. You have to be really in tune, and you have to have good vibrato. Really. I guess unless you're Andy McKee, because he doesn't really vibrato a lot. So there you go. There's my own rule. But for me, for an electric guitar player, that's what I would think of.
Okay, fine. Last question, which is dedicated to a lot of amateur guitarists here. When you have, you know, we all pass by a demotivational plateau, you know, this, when you're practicing guitar, you learn your intermediate player, if that makes sense, I don't know, but, and you want to overcome this famous plateau. You want to learn more, but you don't know what to learn. You don't know how to challenge yourself. What is the best advice you can give us for this part, for example?
Pick a piece of music that you're a little scared of, that's a little bit beyond your reach, and learn it by ear. Transcribe it, learn it, and keep doing that. That's it. And you don't have to make it formal sheet music. You want to know how I transcribe? Because it's the fastest way, is I listen to the song and I write out the notes in MIDI as I listen.
Okay.
Because it's visual, it's fast, it's easy, I can do it. And then you can make things repeat a million times. You can slow them down. Get that transcription. You're training your ear. You're learning a new sound. You're learning something new. Then pick up your guitar and, you know, look at the MIDI and find the notes and learn how to play it. And just do that. Do that. And then write your own stuff.
Okay.
And you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be crazy. But all you need is a DAW and a mouse and keyboard to write out notes with some kind of crappy piano sample and then learn how to play it and throw in some chords under it. You know, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It doesn't have to be an album. It doesn't have to be a production. Just think of them as your sketchbook.
Yeah. And,
you know, your guitar is like your tool that you're going to learn it on. Because I guarantee you, if there's a guitar solo you really like, but you're a little scared of, transcribe it and then start to learn it. And you're going to learn new shit. You're going to learn a lot of new shit because it's inevitable. And then play it. And then you'll get better. And then pick another thing that's a little beyond you. And then write something that's beyond you. Just be like, you know, sit at the piano and go, you know, I would never play something like that on guitar, but I just sang that melody to you. I would never pick up the guitar and play that. I pick up the guitar and I start playing minor pentatonic and Dorian and shit, you know. But when I think about composing, you know, write that down, and then learn on guitar, get it, and then all of a sudden, there, I just pushed myself. Like right now, in 10 seconds, I just came up with a melody. I learned it on guitar. There you go. That is how you get beyond that. And you can buy books and get lessons and learn more theory, and you can do all that shit, and that's all great. But the best way to learn is what I just described, in my opinion. And that's my recommendation to everybody.
Okay, fine. I have to do that also because it's a thing I don't work on. So yes, it's a very interesting to work on that aspect. And by the way, you are doing the both at the same time because you are learning the song and to train your ears at the same time.
Yes.
So that's really important, I guess, from what
Yes.
you said. Thanks a lot, Dante, for all these interesting answers. It was so much fun to talk with you about all of that, and I learned a lot of things on guitar. So it was personally, from my point of view, it was very helpful for me, and I think it will help a lot of people here in France and in the world. Can you just summarize the different ways to contact you and to follow you on social media and websites?
Yeah, you just type my name into Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever. Find my pages and send me a message. Instagram is the best.
Yeah.
Instagram is the best just because I get the DMs really easily. Facebook DMs are so wonky. I miss them. They don't show up. It's weird. So send me a DM on Instagram. My handle is just @Dante Frisiello. And let's get in touch. You can also fill out contact forms on my website and stuff, but Instagram is probably the easiest. I'm on Instagram all the time. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
We can also take some lessons from you directly on Skype, I guess. So I have we can contact you directly on Instagram to see if you have any availabilities to take some lessons. Yeah.
So send me a message because I've got plenty of availability for lessons coming up, and you know, the next year I've got tons of space, and I have you know, plenty of students, but I'm always looking for more. So I love to teach. So just send me a message and we'll work some out.
Okay, fine. So I will put all the links in the description as always. And I want to thank you again for your time and your kindness. It was perfect. And I hope perhaps to see you soon on the channel. It could be a great idea to talk about composition music because you gave us this enthusiasm, which is very helpful for us players. So thanks again for that. I wish you all the best for next year, 2023, and for the next part of the Vai Band tour. And
thank you, man.
And see you next year, perhaps. Thanks a lot, Dante.
Hopefully. Thanks, Alex. Hey, man, it was great to meet you, and thanks for having me, man. This was really cool. I really enjoyed it.
It was a great pleasure. Thanks a lot, Dante. Goodbye.
Yeah, man.